Eric. Together we are Blackstone Valley Veggie Gardens. We are local. I'm from Blackstone. Eric's from lives in Uxbridge. And what we do is we go around to various groups, libraries especially. We have several presentations. I'll show you several presentations on food growing, different aspects of food growing. And they're set up specifically for different times of the season. Eric did one in indoor seed starting. That was a new one this year. We're going to be doing one here in May, growing your summer salad. You know, you obviously can't start your tomatoes until it warms up. That's on tomatoes, lettuce, and cucumbers, and how to shade the cucumbers and grow everything so that it grows together. Herbs, growing herbs, raised bed gardening. We did one in, I believe it might have been Sutton or Westboro. Companion, I think it was Sutton. They have a great gardening community in Sutton. Companion planting and design, and that's what plants play well with other plants, and it makes a big difference. So, in any case, so that's what we do. And so if you ever want to come on and say, what are these folks doing? We're actually going to be rolling out at least a few more this season, and that will be in the town of Southborough. So they've got a really good one coming up in June, and that's called the Organic Approach. And that's gardening, using natural soil amendments as opposed to a lot of fertilizers, pest control, critter control, all that kind of stuff, without adding chemicals to your world. So, so the upcoming events, you'll see in April. This is the end of April. You'll see we have a couple coming up, growing summer salad here, and then we have this one is in Sutton again, all about tomatoes, soup to nuts, different kinds of tomatoes, how to can them, how to harvest the seed, everything you ever wanted to know about tomatoes. So that's who we are. If you want to see what we've been up to, we do have a couple of presentations up here that the media's done on us, etc. And then we have our Facebook group, our company group, and then we have a whole ton of YouTube videos. People learn in different ways. Some people learn hands-on, some people are visual learners, some people learn, by studying something and writing. But I'm a visual learner. I like to go on YouTube, and so we have a YouTube. We probably have, I don't know, maybe 10 presentations there. So Alt Tab, Aaron. Right?
Yep, Alt Tab.
Ah, perfect. Okay, very good. All right. So, and then the video is another Alt Tab?
The video should just Alt Tab until you get over to Chrome.
Okay,
yep.
so this presentation, I did some content for this presentation when we worked at a fair. We had a booth in the city of Worcester, and we had a whole table full of different signs and different grow bags, and to try to get some people from the city to actually grow stuff, even if they don't have a big yard. So we took it and said, a lot of people now, for n number of reasons, are deciding to grow in pots. But you can grow a lot of stuff in pots now. They aren't the pots that our grandmas used to have, the big ceramic pots that you grow flowers in. Oh, no, they've really kicked it up a notch. So I wanted to give that, show you exactly what you can do with that. And I wanted to first tell you some of the reasons that people opt to plant using containers is, first of all, just like raised bed, your soil is easy to control. Why? You're not depending on Mother Earth. You're actually putting your own soil in there. You can even buy a good potting soil. Eric and I typically go organic, so we would suggest an organic potting soil. Or you can make your own potting soil using some ingredients that I'll show you later. But the soil is easy to control, okay? Another thing is, no matter how hard you try, I have, let's see, 2 25-foot long and 5 12-feet long raised beds. And I did it the right way, put landscape fabric in so I wouldn't get the weeds. Well, you know what, I still get those dang weeds in my, they fly in, they don't necessarily grow up, but they still fly in after a while. So and they still fly in your pots if you leave them outdoors, but it's easy enough to weed them when you have the pots. Some people, you know, they don't have a big backyard. So, you know, you can do it in a limited space. You can do it on your deck. You can do it, you know, on your front porch or what have you. So people don't, you know, don't do it. Another thing is growing in pots. The pots can actually be brought indoors. You can move them in and out. I don't know how many of you know, but there are peppers, for example. I get my peppers growing, they're slow to come up, whether they're bell peppers, you know, hot peppers, they're real slow to come up, and then they're thriving. I'm picking on a daily basis, and then they get a hard freeze and they die. The reason is they're actually perennials, they just keep going. But, so if you grow them in pots, you can take them indoors into the garage or what have you, and you can seriously elongate your season. Same thing happens with some of those big tomatoes, you know, the brandywines, etc. They take a while to get going, and you know, once they're up there, you get a freeze and they die. So you can tote your tomato, your pots inside and outside. Also, many of the newer varieties of vegetables were actually developed. You know, a lot of the hybrids were actually developed to grow specifically in pots. So you go in Walmart or Home Depot and you see some caged tomatoes. They're already fruiting, and you say, what the heck? First of all, it's done indoors, but some of those tomato varieties only grow, you know, 18 inches to 2 feet tall. But and you also, you know, as we all know, old school gardeners like Eric and myself, you have to grow corn in rows because it needs to cross-pollinate, and it's a hard thing to grow, but they actually have varieties of corn that actually grow in pots now. So that's what the science is. A lot of science behind this growing veggies. And people are getting more into it. Also, you have a whole lot of different types of containers that you may have around the house that you can actually convert into growing your veggies. You know, the ones I like the most actually are the big old Home Depot containers. Not the ones you use with paint. I mean, you have to scrub all those out. But the big old Home Depot containers that cost $2.97 to drill some holes in them and that. So, okay. So, even though I say container gardening is easier, it is easier. It's a lot easier. You do have to. There is a regimen, or you'll lose your crops. There's definitely a regimen here. The first thing is you can't overwater your pots, because if I'm pouring water, if I'm in my garden, I'm pouring water, you know, watering a pepper plant, and there's excess water. What happens to it? It just kind of, you know, flows into the soil. But when you're in a container garden, you know, you may flood it, and if the roots can't breathe, then you're gonna drown them. It's a living organism, right? You're gonna drown them. So you really have to be careful. If you came to I've been working on my soil for years. If you came to my house and you took my soil and put it in your hand, it would be almost like a sponge. It took me years to get it that way in my raised beds, but that's basically what your soil should be like. Same thing is root bound. A lot of times you get those plants. They're very attractive. People give them as gifts. They're already fruiting. You know, the peppers that we're having. They're in Walmart. They're already starting to fruit. And you take them home, and then you see they get brown spots all over the leaves or what have you. Take a look at those roots. It could be root bound. Because what happens is, like I say, in the garden, if you grow something in the garden, the roots will spread out into the ground. But when you are growing from pots, they don't have any place to go. So they grow around and around and around, and they choke themselves, so they become root bound. So what you do in that case is you take them out of the pot, and you prepare a new larger pot. Typically those, as I say, my favorite is the 5-gallon containers from Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware or what have you, and you put them in one of those, but they can't be root bound. The other thing is the soil compaction. So you have to have a light, fluffy soil, and I have a recipe for you that you can use, or you can buy a good organic potting soil. The ones that you buy, it's funny, the ones that you buy, the potting soils, typically the ones that even aren't organic, the ones basically used to grow flowers in. But when you buy them, you see these little white specks in there, and it looks like you say, I just paid all this money for styrofoam. That's not styrofoam, that's a perlite, and it's used so that the roots don't clump together, they kind of grow around that mineral, that soft mineral, perlite or vermiculite. So, you've seen that, right? The little white dots in there? Yeah, I always thought it, my son says, geez, it must be little pieces of plastic. The other thing is, as I say, if you grow in your garden, you have a tomato plant in your garden, if it needs water and there's no water right there, it'll suck the water in from the neighboring soil. But in your pot, you have only so much space, so you have to make sure you water it. Enough, but not too much. And the soil should actually, when you take it and you squeeze it like this, the texture should be like a sponge that's been wrung out. Always like a sponge that's been wrung out. The other thing is you cannot over-fertilize your plants. Better to under-fertilize. If you have a really good soil, whether you make your own from the recipe I'll show you, or whether you buy your own potting soil, you don't really need a lot of fertilizer because the fertilizer is coming from the soil that you get. So the food is, I should say, good nutritious soil doesn't need a lot of extra fertilizer. So if you give it too much fertilizer, you think it's like giving a newborn baby a pizza. It's just, they just don't know what to do with it, and it'll cause them harm. Any questions? So far, okay. All right. So this is the. I'm a cheap person, very frugal. I try to be anyway, but every year I spend all that I make doing this little business on my garden. So, very reasonable way to make your potting soil is to use some peat moss. In 1 part peat moss. It comes in a big bale. Everyone knows what peat moss is, right? You open it, it looks like it's a fairly little amount, but once you open it up, it's really fluffy and you get a whole ton of stuff out of it. So I use that. It's acidic. As most vegetables like the earth, at least mildly acidic. It doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it. It's not used because of nutrition. It's used because it's very light and airy, and that's what your pots need, more so than your in-ground. So you use 1 part of potting soil. You also put in some sand, not your pool sand or your sandbox sand, but builder's sand. It's a little more coarse, and that's to prevent the roots from clumping together. They actually grow around the sand. And also you use 1 part compost because and of all these 3 ingredients, the only one with real nutritional value is the compost. Because as I say, the peat moss doesn't have nutrition. The sand is basically an inorganic material. It doesn't have much. But they're all used for a specific purpose. Again, the peat makes the soil nice and fluffy. The builder sand helps the roots not to clump, and the compost is what's used for feed. A lot of folks, they say they use the vermiculite instead of the sand. Vermiculite costs a little more, or perlite. So, but that's the cheapo way, and I'm all for the cheapo, especially when you don't compromise anything. Okay, so for those of you, and we have 10 classes we roll out, and I think for the vast majority of them, I have to emphasize compost, because when I'm doing the organic approach, when I do raised beds, when I do tomatoes, everybody wants to know about compost. And as well as being frugal with the money, I'm also frugal with my time. And the more nutritious your soil is, the better your output is going to be. The less time you have to spend and less money you have to spend on the blue Miracle Grow and all that kind of stuff, because you're not going to need it as much. So does anybody compost? Good. I like to hear that. So basically, Christine, you composted?
I need to start again, we just.
You gave me your bin, I know. So, okay, so, all right, let's talk about compost. Compost is easy and it's cheap. You can buy vermicompost at one of these specialty stores. That's actually worm poop. Or you can get bat guano, which is actually bat poop. Or you can get lobster compost, all these fancy kind of compost. Do you need them? Probably not. Would they help? Yeah, they may help a little bit, but why not just use your own vegetable scraps and your own leaves and all that kind of stuff? It's a little bit of work, but you know what? It's really just as good. So let's talk about it. Brown matter. You use 2 parts of brown matter to 1 part of green matter. And they call it brown matter. It means it's high in carbon. It's dead stuff. Wood ash, shredded cardboard, sawdust, newspaper, peanut shells, cornstalk, straw, and I should have put it in there. I have to edit this before I send it out to you all. The best part of the brown matter is actually your fall leaves. But the whole thing with the fall leaves is you have to make sure you grind them up. So you run over them with your lawnmower, or you put them through a shredder or what have you, or else they may clump in your compost and it'll take you years before you can actually use them. So that's the carbon, the brown matter. They call it brown matter. But like I say, it's not all of it might not be brown. Just like the green matter, not all of that might be green. For example, your horse, cow, chicken manure is green matter. Your coffee grounds, it's brown. My coffee's brown, but it's actually high in nitrogen, so it's brown matter. All your grass clippings, your hay, your veggie scraps, hedge clippings. Also use eggshells in there. Eggshells is a good source of calcium, which is another thing that's good for the garden as well. So you mix all that stuff up in a bin. People have the tumblers now, or they have the static, or you can use a pile. Just keep it and keep it watered, and within, depends upon what you have, within 3 to 6 months, you'll have beautiful black gold. I should have brought some, I didn't, but I really should have brought some. Sometimes I do at my house a little jar of my black gold. I make everybody smell it, because you think this is made with, year-old horse poop and rotten lettuce. No, it doesn't smell at all. It actually smells nice, so believe it or not, nice and fresh. So that's how I make my compost. Because how much does compost cost?
It's not, excuse me, it's not very expensive, but if you can get away with doing it yourself.
Right. But how much is it for a good-sized bag of compost?
It's a bag, $10 or $11.
$10 or $11, yeah. And you don't know, they say it's organic or whatever, but you really don't know what's in it. Okay, so as I say, the veggie containers that we use today are a lot different than the old pots that we used to use. Okay, that our Nanny used to use. So people are growing a lot of stuff in them, and this is why we have a sign-up sheet. Anyone who wants this presentation can get this presentation. There's a lot of nice little tips in here and cheat sheets. For the smaller pots, you'll see the chives, lettuce, radish, salad greens, basil, coriander. They're not really deep-rooted. They don't need an extremely deep-rooted pot. For the 6 to 7 inch, you'll see bush beans, garlic, onions, Asian greens, peas, mint, and thyme. So again, the 8 to 9 inch, and don't skimp, because if you skimp and you grow something that needs, first of all, you can grow something that needs a 4 or 5 inch pot in a bigger one. That's not going to hurt it. But if you try to grow a broccoli in a 4 or 5 inch pot, it won't live. It'll be all root bound it won't. So 8 to 9 inch pole beans, carrots, chard, cucumber, eggplant, leeks, peppers, spinach, parsley, and rosemary. Okay, so then the big ones. The big ones that need a lot of space are the beets, broccoli, okra. I don't grow okra, but I don't think it even grows out here. I mean, I could get a cultivar that grows, but too slimy. Potatoes, sweet corn, summer squash, dill, lemongrass, tomato, and peppers. So those are the big ones. Basically what we do, basically for us, the most common vegetable grown for all of New England is basically tomatoes. People love to grow tomatoes. Don't skip on the tomato parts. I do have another slide specifically that tells you a little bit about the tomatoes. There it is. Okay, so another thing is there are basically, well, there's a ton of tomatoes. There's thousands of different cultivars of tomatoes that you can grow for different reasons. Sauce tomatoes, paste tomatoes, beefsteaks, cherries, some for salad. There's a whole ton of them. But they basically, we break them up into, say, some are determinate and some are indeterminate. Okay, so the ones that grow easiest in pots are the ones that, the determinates grow maybe 3.5, maximum of 4 feet high. And that's your Romas and Celebrity and some other tomatoes. And these as well, the patio, toad, and beefsteak. You want that big juicy beefsteak tomato, the one that you put in the tomato sandwich every year, or you slice up and make the caprese salad with. You can grow, but you really have to look for a determinate variety. There are basically some hybrids out there. You can grow the tall ones, but the determinants grow to 4 feet. The indeterminate varieties keep growing and growing and growing until a hard freeze. So they require a lot more pruning, etc. So, but can you grow them in a pot? You can grow them in a pot, but you'll have your hands full because you're going to have to prune it and make sure it grows up. You have to make sure it stakes properly and it grows properly. So the easiest way to grow tomatoes in pots is to buy one that's in a pot already. They have those, or to make sure you get a determinate variety of tomatoes. And these just another hint for growing tomatoes is typically to put them in these type of pots here. You have to realize that you don't start tomato seeds in these pots. If you're going to start stuff from seed, that's a warm weather crop that you want to grow in your pots. Tomatoes, peppers, or eggplant especially, you have to start them inside first, or purchase them because they don't grow well outside. It's too cold. So these are for actually plants that are already started before you put them in the pots. Okay, so we have some ideas for trellising your containers, and the one on the far right over there, those are actually for whole beans, right, Eric?
Yep, those are beans.
Did you grow them for peas as well? No?
I use a regular piece of deck lettuce for peas.
Oh, okay, all right. So that's a pea trellis, not very expensive. A lot of this stuff, those are bamboo poles. A lot of that stuff you can get at Job Lot really cheap. So they have, you see the one over here on the left, that's kind of a fancy one. You can get that at Job Lot as well. The one in the middle, typically the wooden one, you can buy those. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard to make. You have some spare wood around the house. I make everything, so. Okay. So, any questions yet? Okay, so here are some. This is what I like. I like I like to take stuff and give it a second life. So, for example, look at those old tree stumps. Somebody would have, people hollowed those out, and of course, you know, there's a lot of organic matter. The whole thing is organic matter, so I'm sure it'll work out fine. Above that is the colander. You know, it's really good to have some aeration in your roots, and what a really nice way to do that is to use an old colander. The one up there, you see where the tomatoes are growing in those Home Depot pots. That's my favorite. And the way basically you do that, the way I do it, and there's a couple of ways, but I'll show you. I have a little clip on it. But what I do is I just drill holes in the bottom of the bucket. And the bucket has a little lip around it anyway. So that's for the drainage, because if you water something or if you leave them outside and it rains, you want it to drain so that it won't flood the plant. So that's what I do. I drill holes in the bottom, put my beautiful potting soil mix in that I make myself, put the plant in, and remember to water it. Simple stuff.
Excuse me, should you put some pebbles or something in the bottom?
Some people
first?
do, but so the pebbles are for the same thing. The pebbles are the pea stone or whatever. That is to absorb excess water, the drainage. But I'm drilling holes so that the water comes out. If you have those sitting on a deck and you don't want the water to go all over your deck, you just want something to absorb the excess down at the bottom, then you can certainly use little pebbles. You don't really have to do both though.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Yes.
The wine crate there, did you also have to drill holes in the bottom of the wine crate?
I do have a slide on something that I'll show you what I did with a wooden box.
Thank you.
But yes, I do. You could probably do the same thing and put the pebbles down if you wanted. These, look at all that basil on the top one on the left. My goodness, that is basil, right? It's basil. My goodness, that's a lot of basil in the bathtub. I'd like to get kind of funky with these classes. You know. That's something I wouldn't know what to do with all that basil, but they sell it. So on the bottom, you see those are potato sacks. So I've actually grown in potato sacks. You got to make sure you water those. A lot of people, believe it or not, they grow potatoes in potato sacks. Growing potatoes is a different beast in its own right, and they stack them up and keep putting soil, and the potatoes keep growing. At the end of the season, they cut open the bag and all the potatoes come out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Potatoes are not easy. So.
Kate,
Yeah,
will basil come back?
basil's not as an animal, no, it won't come back.
It won't come back.
Probably stay long if you had a pot and brought it indoors though.
Okay.
So, okay. So here are some really funky ones that you can actually, you can actually purchase. And I want to talk about this one over here on the left. Those are grow bags. And what I did one year is I had a whole collected of, I don't like to abuse the environment, so I had a bunch of those Stop and Shop bags, you know, the cloth ones. I cut a couple of holes in it. I could have used the pebbles as well. Cut a couple of holes in the bottom of it and grew some stuff in it. And I still have that bag. I can use it again. That they say, oh, it only lasts a year or whatever, but I still have that bag. So you can use those or on the cheap, or you can buy some expensive grow bags made of, what is it, Aaron?
Polyethylene.
Polyethylene. Yeah, they supposedly last a long time. I really like the idea of the herb planter on the bottom there. It's not ceramic. That no one basically, I have horrible luck with ceramic plants because it seems to leach all the moisture out of it. I got someone for a gift gave me some little ceramic ones to plant herbs in, and I don't start them in those at all. I take a Coke bottle and cut the bottom out of it, poke some holes in it, and some soil, and I have much better luck. But anyway, basically the majority of them they make in a plastic now. So it's as long as you know what you're growing, and as long as you've designed it and realized that a sage can grow yay long, and it matters what you're growing in there. So, but sometimes people grow in there because you have some herbs that, just to give you an example, mint that can be highly invasive, and if you don't contain it in a small area, forget it, it'll take over your whole garden. The one in the middle on the top is, we'll show you Eric's, he has a they call it self-watering. It's a less intrusive, less frequent watering units, and we'll show you how those work. And the one below that, we've actually done a couple of those for some clients. And for people that have a bad back or what have you, why should they give up their gardening, right? It's kind of like a raised bed, but typically raised beds don't have bottoms to them. You know, they just have the landscape fabric. People put down cardboard or paper or what have you. So these are elevated up, they have a bottom. So really it is a container. And then on the bottom right, you see some typical plastic containers that you can buy at just about anywhere that you want. So the thing is, I do have to say that we had a really good class. Was it Sutton on this one? Was it? Where was it?
North Smithfield.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Over the border in Rhode Island. They have some really, really good gardens there. They asked all the good questions, but they're asking all kinds of questions about which kind of soil to use and all that. And, you know, basically, someone said, well, this is container gardening. Can you use your potting soil? It says potting soil. Well, basically, that's what a container is. The same thing as a pot, but they call it container gardening because people think of a pot as being a round pot. But you can use it. It can be a barrel. It can be a trough. It can be a whole bunch of different shapes. So when we hear, you know, potting soil, that's what you use in a container. Okay, so I just want to show you a couple of slides on this, and I have to talk to, because unfortunately there's a couple of these slides that are actually missing. I'll have that fixed before I send the presentation out. Okay. So I did get a box. This is a plain wooden box. I got it at Facebook, one of the sale groups, because I'm cheap, and it was a decent box. I think I spent $7 on it. It's probably about yay deep, probably close to a foot deep, and probably 3 feet. I got it because I wanted to grow some veggies, especially root veggies, especially for my granddaughter. So, and I wanted, she's a year and a half, but I wanted her to participate try to get her to participate in the process. So, so that's what I did. And then, this is excuse my messy garage, it always looks like this. So, especially before I clean up the drain. So that's a paddle bit, and that is what I use to drill the holes in the bottom of that container, okay? So, then, oops, like I said, I'm missing a couple of slides, I'll talk to it. So I drilled the holes in the container, but if I filled it up with soil, where would the overflow go? It wouldn't go anywhere. It has to drain out, right? It doesn't have a lip on it. It's a flat bottom. So I actually took 2 pieces of pine and put them on the bottom as feet, so that then when I water it, all the excess will flow out onto the ground. So then what I did was this is what I added to it. I added some compost. I added some sand, and I added compost, sand, and some peat moss. That's the typical that I showed you all. But I wanted this for her to grow beets, radish, carrot, and daikon, which is a sweet, long kind of a radish that looks like a carrot. So those are root vegetables. So because they're root vegetables, I also added some bone meal to the mix. And typically, I like to do that because bone meal is high in phosphorus, and it helps with rooting. It's also an organic soil amendment. So that's what I did. I put that in there and grew my, I'm growing her own little garden. So. Okay, so Eric, you want to show that? You want to show that container?
Well, if you just want to hold it up, I'll talk about it. It's behind you.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay, so what Kate has here is, and again, since we're,
It's dirty, but
yeah,
regardless, right? So-
since we're talking about messes, excuse that mess
Yeah,
too.
right.
That is actually what's called an earth box. You can get those at any garden center. They cost about $50 a piece. I have 5 of them. My third one almost ended up in divorce, but I got 2 more anyway after that. But basically what it is, Kate, if you just want to hold it up like this so you can see the inside, there's a screen that on the inside that holds the soil with 2 open corners. And what you do is you take wet soil and pack it into the 2 corners, and then continue to add wet soil all the way up until it's mounded over the top of the box. And then you just put water in through that fill tube, and the wet soil in the corners will actually wick the water all the way up through the box. So all you have to do is fill in that tube, and it will actually hold, that's a 2-gallon reservoir at the bottom, will actually hold 2 gallons of water, and as the plants need it, it will take it up. So you just pour the water in there. I use the jet sprayer, or the jet on my hose sprayer, until the water flows out. Kate, hold it up the regular way now. No.
Okay.
Yep. Right there in the center is the overflow hole until water comes out the bottom there.
Yeah.
And you usually, in the height of the summer, will only have to put water in there maybe once every 2 or 3 days. And the plant takes it up as it needs it.
Well, that's the whole thing, is when you do grow in containers, you kind of tend to your, unless, I have a big garden, I always hire, I've been hiring a plant sitter when I go on vacation, but my daughter's 30 now, so I think she you know, but I now finally allow her to water. I don't allow her to weed, because I don't know if she knows a weed, but when you have pots, you do have to make sure that, you know, you weed it. But this one, so understand that, let me show you on this one. Do you want to pass this, or is it too dirty?
It's probably too dirty.
gross? Okay, I'll just.
Yeah.
So this is basically similar to what Eric has here. Okay, so instead of just watering the soil, okay, until it's like a wrung out sponge, the water goes in and fills this whole big bottom container. This is a container in a container. So you can give it a lot of water, and then the water actually, these 2 cups actually suck that water up. They call it wicking. Wicks the water up so that it actually goes up and goes into the roots. So, and these pebbles are used as well for drainage. And this is an indicator on this one. This is an indicator that'll tell you when you need to water it and when it's full. Eric's is easier because Eric's has a drainage hole. If it's full, it just comes out. But this is, you know, isn't quite as easy. So, but it's fairly intuitive. So that's basically what we do.
Those kits for the box that I have also come with dolomite, which is a soil amendment, as well as, I'm sure everybody's seen that little granular fertilizer that looks like pebbles.
Mm-hmm.
You mix the dolomite in with the soil, and then depending on what you want to plant, according to the manufacturer's instruction of the box, is where you put a strip of that fertilizer and then cover it up. And the moisture in the soil helps to diffuse the fertilizer over time too. In our presentation, if you all come to the one in May on growing a summer salad, we actually have a picture of my cucumber vines from back in 2010 in one of those that are about 12 feet high, running up the top of a trellis, because the results in those things are ridiculous. Absolutely amazing. I've seen some people that have 9 or 10 foot tall tomato plants in them too. Yeah.
That's not it. Okay, let me try it.
Did you alt tab? Remember, we're showing it on 2 different screens. It's not a duplicate. It's an extension.
I know, but it's not coming up on.
Yeah.
I'll give
Yeah,
you.
you know, I guess we're running Chrome is running full screen. Yeah, full letter.
Oh, all right, very good. So we have a presentation, and this guy, instead of spending $50, this guy will tell you how to do it the Kate style on the.
I was kind of wondering, I'm like, why didn't she figure out how to do it yet?
Yeah, there you go. All right.
In hot, sunny weather, keeping plants in
Kate,
containers watered
run it in full
can
screen.
take a considerable amount of time. Then there's always the anxiety about how plants will fare when you're away for a well-earned break.
Yep.
One solution is to use self-watering pots, such as this. It's actually very easy and inexpensive to make one, so in this video, we'll show you how, step by step.
You'll need 2 containers which, when stacked, will leave a gap between the bottom and top containers. The gap will serve as your water reservoir. If there isn't enough of a gap, you can use some plastic pots to raise the top container up a little more. We're using 2 5-gallon or 20-litre food-grade plastic buckets. You can often pick these up for free from restaurants or very cheaply from home improvement stores. You'll also need a 1.5 inch or 3 centimetre diameter plastic pipe, long enough to run the length of the 2 buckets. A plastic cup, yogurt bottle similar to act as a wicking chamber, and of course some quality potting soil and your plants. Start by preparing the wicking chamber. This should dangle down from the top bucket into the bottom. Stuffed with potting soil, it will draw or wick water from the reservoir up into the top bucket. Use a marker pen to trace an outline of the pot onto the middle of the top bucket. Now cut it out. You can use a keyhole saw or a hacksaw for this. Here I'm using a drill to make lots of small holes, so I can use a sharp knife to cut the plastic out. The wicking chamber will need lots of holes all around the sides to allow the water to enter from the reservoir. Use a 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre wide drill bit to make these. Now for the water delivery pipe. Begin by cutting one end of your plastic pipe at a 45-degree angle like this. This will allow the water to freely flow from the pipe into the reservoir without getting blocked. Cut the top end so it stands clear of the final soil level. Now cut a hole into the bottom of the top bucket so the pipe can pass into the reservoir. Make sure it's a snug fit by tracing the outline, then cutting to size. The top bucket will need some drainage holes for healthy root growth. Drill lots of 1/4 inch or 5mm holes into its base. You can go for a random pattern or an orderly effect such as this. Stack the top bucket into the bottom bucket, then mark off using a pen where the top bucket sits. Remove the top bucket and drill a 1/4 inch or 5mm hole into the bottom bucket, just below this line. This will serve as an overflow hole, so the potting soil in the top bucket never gets waterlogged. It also removes any guesswork from filling the reservoir. Just stop when the water starts to drain out from the overflow. Now it's time to assemble the container. Insert the top bucket into the bottom bucket. Fill the wicking chamber with potting soil, firming it in for good contact, then slot the chamber snugly into its hole. Slide the water delivery pipe into place, pointy end down. Fill the top bucket with potting soil, moistening with water as you fill. You can plant several plants into the top bucket according to their spacing requirements, or set one plant, such as a tomato, at the centre. This allows you to cover up the remaining soil surface, which will reduce evaporation, especially important in hotter climates. Use a lid for this, cutting appropriate holes to accommodate the plant and the pipe. Alternatively, you can use a thick garbage bag secured at the sides with rubber bands, a bungee cord or string. You could also add a shallow ring of organic fertiliser around the plant. The moist potting soil will gradually draw the nutrients down into the soil to feed the plant's roots.
This is a fantastically elegant solution to daily watering, and you can always add additional self-watering containers as time allows. Please share your tips for self-watering plants by just dropping us a comment below. And for more practical projects such as
Oh, then it's fine, okay. Okay.
this, make sure you're subscribed to our video channel. I'll catch you next time.
Oh, no, we need to get that there. Okay. There.
Yep. Just hit the presentation mode down at the bottom. Nope, that's definitely not ours. Okay.
Eric, if you just hit pause.
There we go. There we go. That was my IT guy. I'm in IT, I've been in IT a long time, I don't do laptops. Okay, so that's how I do the self-watering plant part. So the whole thing is, it may seem like a little bit of work, you need a little bit of a sod, and you know, somebody asked me at the last presentation, like I say, there are really good gardeners down there, just like you folks here, really good gardeners down there in North Smithfield, and they asked, do you use a food grade container? I use the containers at Home Depot. I'm not sure whether they're considered food grade, but number one, I don't eat food out of them. And number two, I don't put them in the microwave or anything like that. And you notice around this time of year, there are a whole bunch more of those orange buckets or the white buckets from Ace Hardware, the blue buckets from Lowe's. They have a whole bunch of them because everybody is using it basically for this purpose. So.
Look, it's a Tractor Supply.
Okay.
Grade.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit. Now we'll get a little bit creative, just if you want to stretch. Just to give you some ideas. I don't do this, but a lot of people do. People are really big into hydroponics. Okay, so hydroponics is growing stuff without soil. And I actually know some people, friends of Eric's and mine, who sells a container on the right. What happens is you plant the little seedlings in those little the openings, and there's a pump that runs. It keeps running, and you put some liquid fertilizer in it. It's not organic, and it keeps raining on top of the seeds. And let me just show you. There's a pump here, and it comes up, and then it rains down and hits the roots behind here. And it makes the stuff grow. It grows really quickly too. And I've seen her grow kale and herbs and all that kind of stuff. Believe me, I don't think you're gonna have good luck growing a pumpkin out of that thing. Or I don't even know cucumbers, or even a decent size of tomato. But sometimes people do that and they have them growing inside. There's a special light thing, but it costs $525. And I know there's gonna be some cheaper varieties out there, but it's a very expensive way to do it, but it's good for a classroom. If somebody, a teacher of science, everyone should. First of all, I think we should teach growing food in our schools. It's something that we're definitely missing, but it might be something for a classroom. But so they call it the tower garden. I don't have a tower garden. Needless to say. Okay, so because I'm cheap, as I said, so. This is a very interesting thing, and I saw some of these. That I go to the Boston Flower and Garden Show. Does anyone go to that? You should go next year. See?
Yeah,
See?
I used to go with my dad.
Yeah, you should go. Yeah, you should go.
Since I was at Courage.
Yeah. So what the heck? Okay. Not sure what happened there. It's not displaying now. I think that might have been the last one.
Unplugged, maybe?
I'm not sure.
Try Alt-Tab again, Kate.
Not there. Oops. Nope. It's okay. I think it was the last one.
It was. Except for the one with the big question mark for the Q&A.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So the aquaponics. So that's what happens is. Sometimes people are trying out new things, so they actually have fish in the bottom. The fish poop, and that is brought up to the top tier where there's actually lettuce or some kind of green growing. So the fish poop actually feeds the lettuce. So, and it actually also will feed some lichen or some kind of plant material that the fish can eat. So it lasts a long time. It's kind of like a closed system. I don't know how easy it is to grow or what have you, but some people are experimenting with that. And the reason I say is because I saw somebody that had a setup at the home and the flower and garden show, which I want to tell you, every year I go, is getting more and more about gardens and less about flowers, which I like. There's all kinds of classes and different presentations throughout the days and a whole bunch of stuff to see. So that's basically our presentation. And I always like to leave a few minutes for questions, whether you have questions about weeding, about pest control, about anything you have, composting, anything you have about gardening, we'll we'll do our best. Please. Yes.
Where, like, I remember last year seeing things about if you buy plants at like Walmart or Home Depot, they had some kind of chemicals that kill the bees.
Right, so I want to talk to you, that's very important. So Eric and I basically teach about growing food, okay? Whether you grow food from seed or whether you buy your plants. So all around here, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, they all buy their veggie seed, the veggie plants from Bonnie Plant. Bonnie Plant does not use that chemical in their plants. So they're completely safe. They may not have been started organically, and they may not be heirloom seeds or what have you. So when you if you want to harvest those seeds and plant them the next year, they may not come up. Or they may come up, and instead of getting the red tomato or the parents, you may get a yellow tomato because they're hybrids. But those plants that you buy from Bonnie Plant, they do not use that chemical. I've had very good luck. As a matter of fact, this year I was trying out some new lights. I got a whole bunch of new lights, and I actually killed off some of my pepper plants. I have some starting, but I don't think they're going to make it in time. So I'm going to actually supplement. I will go over. Funny thing, I live in Blackstone. I used to live in Bellingham, so in that area. And the people on one side, the Home Depot's on one side of the street, and basically Walmart's on the other. The same delivery truck comes and dumps them off in each place. But the ones in Home Depot are beautiful because they have somebody out there every, I don't know how many times a day with a big, huge hose, watering all these plants, and they know how to shade, and they know they cover them at night. And those people over at Walmart, they just don't have it together. So, but I like the quality of the product. No offense to anyone that works at Walmart, honestly, but it might be just they don't have the instruction, from the management folks on how to do it. But I use water plants.
Do they have to put on the plant that it has that chemical?
I don't believe so.
What is that chemical?
I can't remember the name. I would try to fake it, but I just can't remember the name. And in any case, I think it's within 2 years, they're going to be removing that plant. And what the plant does is, that's another class we're going to develop here. We don't have it yet. It's about our pollinators and colony collapse and how, what a number of the environment's doing and how to grow pollinating plants. But that's what it does. It destroys the ecosystem around us. So, and they're only plants, they're only inedibles that have that. It's bad. It is bad, but I know that they're doing away with it. But you don't have to worry about it on your edible plants. So,
Oh, so it's like flowers and stuff?
yeah, I'm going to find out. I have an email list. If you want to put your name on there, just make a note. I'll find the name of it for you, and I'll get more information for you. So, and another. Just to tell you, there's something else that was brought up to our, they had great questions in the last class as well, is can you reuse your potting soil the next year? Well, generally speaking, no, because if you grew a nice, a small tomato plant, there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot of nutrients left in that soil. But as I say, the only piece of that soil mixture that gives nutrients is the compost. So you could add more compost in it, and reuse it. If there's no disease, if the plants look funky or get spotty or something doesn't look right, then chuck the whole thing. The other thing is if you're using potting soil, and potting soil is made of that peat moss. It's an organic material, plant material, right? And compost, the leaves and the grass typically, once it dies, ashes to ashes, right? It goes way down, so you're not going to have a whole heck of a lot of it left. It really decreases. So before you reuse them, you should scrub them out good. And somebody said they used actually 6 parts of water to 1 part of bleach. We don't like the idea of using bleach, but using vinegar is good, and actually there's a million uses for vinegar in the garden. You have to Google that one as well, but you can definitely reuse those pots, but you just don't want any bacteria or any, critters or webs or, critters growing in there. So, yes.
something got into our chickens, so we don't have the coop anymore, but could I use that soil underneath?
How long's it been there?
It was there for a year.
You could probably use it, but you have to, I wouldn't use,
It looks like good soil. Like
and it was mixed with hay or something? Is
Yeah,
it black?
Well, the leaves have been on it all winter.
Yeah, mix it up real good. If it's a year old, you should probably be able to use it. I would still, depending on what problem you're doing, I would still perhaps mix it with some peat moss or something. Are you gonna grow in a bed or are you gonna grow in the ground? Or
I think we're gonna do both.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take out half the play yard.
Yeah, yeah.
around.
Yeah, no, you could definitely do that. So, yeah, you can use it if it's a year old. The whole thing is chicken poop tends to burn.
Yeah, that's what I
So
was wondering.
when people dry the chicken poop, I mean, if they're gonna use it right straight away, typically they do a tea, which to me is kind of gross, but I mean, it works really good. They create these tea bags with it and use that technique. But year-old chicken poop has a lot of nitrogen. Won't be as good as your bunny poop. Though. I want to tell you, this is my friend Christine over here, and one year, couple of years ago, I was actually doing soil testing, just for the heck of it. And these people that had gardens set up for like 20 years, I was testing their macronutrients and their pH and all that. Well, Christine's not a big gardener, right? And she had the best soil of anyone. And I said, what the heck are you doing? And she said that she had a bunny out there because she has a daycare and the kids like the bunnies. So bunny poop is really actually awesome fertilizer, I'm hearing, and you can mix it straight away, it doesn't burn anything. You still have bunnies?
No,
No, that's sad. So, any other questions?
I have some raised beds that I put in, we put down landscape, fabric underneath. I don't know if it's because I got too much shade, because there's more shade than I anticipated when I put the beds down. But I'm not having good luck with much of anything, except tomatoes, and that's in a certain area that has more more sun. But even the lettuce and other stuff I'm growing, it just isn't, and I've got organic matter, compost, I mean, I did a lot of, from the farm, I'd get truckloads of compost and mixed it with combination of topsoil, potting soil.
Yeah, all that stuff, yeah.
So the soil's, I think, pretty good.
How much sun do you get?
You know what, I'm not even sure. When I put those beds in, the leaves hadn't come out, I thought that I was gonna get a lot of sun. Yeah, I
So
think it's the
so
sun.
for the warm weather crops, the ones that like the sun,
Yeah.
you should get probably, I'd say, a minimum of 6 to 10 hours.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
was
should have
thinking-
no issues with your greens at all.
So all the greens should do okay.
They should do
I was
okay.
wondering if it's because that landscape, I
No.
can't even tear it, it's so.
No, have nothing to do with landscape fabric. That's what it's made for. I wouldn't say it would have anything to do with
Oh,
landscape
okay,
fabric.
okay.
What some people do, if you're gonna put in another bed, what a lot of people do is they put down cardboard instead. Because the cardboard actually,
Yeah.
initially, eventually turns into mulch anyway.
Yeah, it's
So,
a good.
yeah. Yeah, but I never had that issue. The only issue I had is you do all this work in the raised bed and the dang weeds get in there anyway, they
Yeah.
fly in. So I gotta put some mulch on top to try to prevent that, so. Any other questions? Yes?
I understand when you say composting with the green compost.
Yeah.
But on the brown compost, which is sawdust, newspapers and all that, I don't understand, do you mix that, you put that in a barrel also and turn it?
Yeah, you do two, so what?
So you'd have two barrels, one
No,
for brown
no,
and one for
no.
green?
Well, so first of all, okay, so in composting, first of all, you usually typically have more than one barrel for another reason, I'll tell you that, but typically you take, so the basic for your brown matter, your carbon rich, dead stump, are your leaves from your fall trees. And if you don't have any, come on over, yeah, go to Christine, she lives here in Auburn, so, yeah, so that's basically it. You
And
put
the
2
brown
parts
matter.
of that,
And the brown matter
Yeah.
we're talking.
yeah, that's the brown matter, put 2 parts of that, so
Okay.
2 cubic feet of that to 1 cubic feet of your grass clippings, or your old lettuce, or it gets there. I'll tell you what I do. I work, where I work, they have these coffee machines. It's the worst tasting coffee you could ever have. But it has these little pods. It's not a K-cup, but it's a little pod and it has this mesh around it, right?
Mhm.
So people use those and then they drop in the bottom of this little bin. So I take all those pods out because they're biodegradable, and I use that as some of my green matter, because coffee's brown, but it has a lot of nitrogen in it. So, but basically your grass clippings are your green, and your leaves are your brown. Anything else is gravy on top of that, but you'll get the black.
But you get two different containers.
No, you mix them all
You
together.
can keep on
You
putting
mix
that
it
all in together
You mix it together, and you do
Okay.
it every once in a while.
and turn it,
If
yeah?
we have a course on composting as well. If you leave a note, I'll put that out, please. I'll send you the presentation on it. You keep doing it, but the whole thing is it turns to black gold. And then, you know, you keep doing it through the winter. You have a salad, your Christmas dinner, you have your potato, you know, leftover baked potato skins or what have you. So you just keep throwing it all in there. And but then again, you know, here it is. I'm ready to plant my crops in March, right? I'm ready to plant my cool weather crops, which I did, and then I have a banana peel. Well, what am I going to do with it? I'm not going to throw it into my compost pile that's already beautiful black gold, right? So I have to have another one.
Okay.
And then because I don't mow my lawn, you know, or I don't have those grass clippings. So anyway, I have another big pile that I stage it. I'll put all my grass clippings in a big pile, and all my leaves in a big pile. And that's like a third bin, and then I mix it into my other bins as required, just to keep the ratio.
Okay,
So,
I gotcha.
yeah, so I have three, actually have three, a tumbler, a static one, and then just a pile that I use to dump it all before I get the right ratios, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes depends, you know, another thing is the leaves fall from the trees in nature, and they'll go around the tree, and that's Mother Nature's way of having no other trees grow, so that tree can grow up without any contention, you know, other trees vying for resources. So the leaves lay flat and they do mat, so you really have to run them over with a lawnmower. Sometimes you get the blower, if you have one of those backpack blowers, you turn it on in reverse, and it actually mulches stuff, sucks it in, mulches it, and puts it right in the back. A lot of them do that, people don't even know it. But you do have to chop up the leaves a little bit to get. Yeah. John knows it, I'm sure he knows it, so. So, any other questions? Yes.
Critter chipmunk.
Oh, chipmunk, okay. Chipmunk.
Um,
You want to take this one, Aaron? Okay.
I really don't know. This is about the third or fourth class in a row that somebody's asked about
That's
chipmunks.
okay. So chipmunks are nasty critters. Eric still has one in his house, which is why he doesn't got it.
No, I have a woodchuck. The chipmunks are the small ones. Yeah.
Okay, a chipmunk. Okay, motion activated sprinkler, Irish Spring soap, human hair around the garden. They don't like carnivores. Granulated carnivore urine that you can pick up at a gardening store. All your old CDs or your pie plates on a string, that's basically for the birds. They get, what the heck is that? So they fly the other way. I'm not sure whether they don't. There are some things that you grow, garlic and onions, that they don't like the smell of, so they'll go the other way. I'm not sure exactly for the chipmunks, but that's basically some organic methods for pest control. Or you can trap them. You can kill them, but I don't like to kill anything. But you can trap them.
They're so cute.
I was just gonna add, we have a fake owl in the yard that we put
Oh,
on a post to keep away, and I don't have any, I think so, nobody needs them.
Yeah, I have
A fake owl, and it's a big plastic thing, we have a post, and just stick it on the post.
Oh, right.
So I'm not sure if
I have
it's
two dogs,
effective.
and they go peeing. They don't, you know,
Oh,
that's it. Yeah. So obviously the dogs don't get in the garden, but they pee around the perimeter, and the critters don't like it. Plus, I have a 6-foot stockade. I just want to tell you, a deer can jump right over if it's scared out of its mind or starving. A male buck can hop over even an 8-foot fence. They don't like to though, because they can't really see over there. But if they're starving or what have you, so there's no real you know, unless you want to grow it in a bubble, so you do the best you can, right? So, Christine.
Do you have to put a net over blueberry bushes?
I think it's the best, if you
Mine-
see bugs and all that, yeah.
Oh, mine, the birds keep taking them.
The birds, yeah, I would put a net over there. You can get those. If you don't see them at like Home Depot, you can get them at, you can get them on Amazon, I'm sure, they got all
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff. I gotta actually get some row cover, but I'm not gonna, I gotta get some stuff to put over my cabbages and my broccolis and my cauliflowers, and because my Brussels sprouts usually get eaten, and I wanna put something over, they have a cabbage worm or what have, so I have to prevent the bugs from getting in, laying the eggs, and so I gotta get some of that type of stuff as well. So I usually go on Amazon, I have Amazon Prime free shipping, so if you wanna use it, come on.
Yeah, we got
Order
it
it.
too.
Oh, you got it, yeah, yeah. Anybody, anything else? Okay, so just so that I don't forget, if you want any of the other presentations or any more information, I do have a sheet here. Oops, get kind of crumpled up. So, there we go. In here, so this is part of the job. Larry, we have to order more business cards.
Okay.
I'm going to-